Hello, I'm Don Grundmann. I'm a doctor of chiropractic from San Leandro for City South of Oakland. I'm chairman of the Constitution Party here in California. And we're the we're the conservative, I consider the actual true conservative far-right party in our state, if you could call us that. We have a great difficulty in our state from the elected officials who have so greatly disappointed us every day, and Senator Feinstein is certainly a classic example of that, working toward the destruction, ultimately, if we follow her policies, the destruction of not only our rural areas, such as Defend Rural America was discussing in Wairika a few months ago, but our entire state. So we have to band together and do what might appear to be impossible at the moment to defeat such a political machine. There was a gentleman, Mr. Michael Huffington, a number of years ago, who spent roughly $40–50 million and still lost to her. So I believe we can still do this, but we have to unite despite what appears on the surface.
Good evening. I'm Oscar Alejandro Braun, and my wife has laid out my bio here for me, so I'd make sure I get everything in. I'm a native son, born in San Francisco in 1943. My parents were Spanish and Basque immigrants. I'm the father of 2, the grandfather of 4, and the husband of a small business professional woman. My wife's a family dentist. I'm a Catholic, and I'm very much involved with our faith community. I'm a Knight of Columbus. I'm a rancher, and I'm co-founder of the California Watershed Posse, which is one of the only private sector coordinated resource management and planning councils in the state of California. It's time for Senator Feinstein to retire, and I'm hoping that we can send her on her way. I'm categorized myself as a constitutional originalist, and look forward to the debate.
First of all, Liz and Dan, Liz, I saw you for the very first time here. When I gave a talk, there's some people in the audience that remember my fire and brimstone. I'm not a Calvinist, but nonetheless, I gave it my best shot. Erin, of course, Erin Ryan, a dear friend, is not here tonight. I would like to thank her for everything she's done for me. Ladies and gentlemen, there's such a thing as called the destroyers from within. I want to tell you that I was 2 days ago at the Los Angeles County Republican Party Endorsement Committee. They endorsed a woman that is nothing short of a Trojan horse for our nation. I don't know if you know who I'm talking about. If you know, then you know. If you don't know, it doesn't matter. But I am a 25-year veteran school teacher in LA City School, arguably one of the most corrupted, dysfunctional schools in the nation. I'm a warrior. I'm an anti-communist of the first order. I am here to tell you, for all those that cherish freedom, help is on the way.
Yeah, Don will be number 1, number 2, number 3. You will all ask your first question. And when you ask your question, whoever you ask it to, they will answer. And then you can rebut it if you want. You don't have to. And then we go to the next person. We'll just, no, just one. Yeah, go whenever you want. She's sharp.
Oscar, what are your considerations of the Federal Reserve System and what we should do about it?
Well, I think first thing, it needs to be audited, of course, which the Fed has been fighting for decades. And Ron Paul seems to be putting a lot of pressure and getting more and more support in the Congress to, have the Fed audited. So that would be, I think, number 1 regarding the Fed.
You don't want to respond? Okay. Okay, what we'll do, I know it'll take a while once we get through this first time, but it might be easier if you say no response. Okay.
I'll respond.
Okay.
I totally agree that we need to audit the Fed, but I believe we need to go much farther in that we need to replace the Federal Reserve notes with United States notes issued by the Treasury, which, now that would still be unconstitutional according to our Constitution, but it'd be a transition zone to getting us back to an honest money system from the corrupted Federal Reserve System. United States notes issued by the Treasury would be that key step, and that would do a fantastic amount to give financial freedom and prosperity to our nation.
Rabbi, I'll ask my first question with you, and I'd like to have you share with us your thoughts about the destruction that our global warming initiative, also known as AB 32, and its sister bill, the SB 375, which a lot of people more commonly known as Agenda 21 or Sustainable Development Strategy.
Let's get to the bottom of it, ladies and gentlemen. 100 years ago, the president of the American Communist Party said the following: America cannot be vanquished with force of arms, but it will be vanquished through liberalism and progressivism. This is an extension. We're putting Band-Aids. Oscar, when you ask me about Agenda 21, global warming, all these are Band-Aids on the cancer. The cancer is the communists have not died away. They're in our schools, they're in our government, and they're working amazingly hand in hand with radical Islam and the radical gay agenda to destroy our country. So when you ask me about Agenda 21 and global warming, they're going to do anything they can do to chip away at our nation and redirect the wealth from your pocket to the United Nations.
Well, I agree with you very much. And as some of you know, when I was here in late November, currently have an initiative that's being circulated here in California, the California Bill of Rights. And if it does get onto the ballot and it is approved by the voters, we would repeal AB 32 and SB 375 and the Endangered Species Act, and off goes CARB and the EPA. But as a senator, if I am fortunate enough to be elected to represent the people of California, I will see that our constitutional rights are protected and adherence to the Constitution, something that our current two senators have completely abandoned.
No. It's your turn to ask a question. But you can bring it up later sometime.
Oscar, I'd like to ask you a question, and two questions. First, a yes or no, and then secondly, more detailed. What is the preferred weapon of our enemy? And secondly, what is your answer to those people that say Islam is only a religion?
Well, I don't know how to answer the first with yes or no. I mean, the weapon of our enemy, I think that... I don't really know I don't know the answer to that question. I think that our enemies are using what you said earlier, and that is we will be destroyed from within. America, and of course our state here too, we've become passive. We've been caught up in our lives where we haven't really paid much attention to the type of governance that we have, that it was guaranteed to us under the Constitution. So slowly but surely, especially over the last 40 years, we've had the administrative state and non-governmental organizations expanding their influence and taking over our state and our country, and we are losing our nation, and we are walking away from our Constitution.
You can rebut if you like.
It's called an AK-47 or a Kalashnikov. And you did not answer my other question, and I'll answer it for you. As I drive up the 99 from LA, or wherever I drive along highways throughout America, in the middle of nowhere you see these huge mosques popping up like Jack-in-the-Box. Nobody in this country has anything against Hindus or Buddhists or Jews or Catholics or Protestants. We get along with each other. My great-grandparents came from Russia, one step ahead of the czars that wanted to murder them and turn them into lampshades. They came to this country because this was a bulwark of freedom and individual liberties, where everybody practices their religion the way they want, with the exception of one, and that is radical Islam that is threatening to take over our country.
Oscar, I'd like to know your thoughts on homosexual marriage.
Well, I believe that a marriage is only appropriate between a man and a woman. I support the DOMA, Defense of Marriage Act, in which in early December, Senator Feinstein sponsored a bill to repeal DOMA, and it was, of course, passed by the democratically controlled Senate. And also Senator Feinstein, along with the governor of our state, has come out for the overturning of Prop 8, in which the citizens of California voted in a constitutional amendment that a marriage would only be between a man and a woman, and that is my position.
I'd like to add to that the Proposition 8, there's a website which I've developed, candlecrusade.org, which I believe describes the last chance of our country to defeat homosexual marriage and the tragedies which will result from it. And that website I present that essentially just when Prop 8 passed, the powers that be, I'll call it, they already knew that they were going to overturn Prop 8 in the courts. The trial of so-called Prop 8 by Judge Walker was just a theatrical exercise to cover up for what they'd already decided. Similarly, as I describe at the website, the Supreme Court has already decided, in my opinion, that they will legalize homosexual marriage. It'll be a 7-2 vote for reasons I put on that website. So we need to organize to save our children, because homosexual marriage is not an end in itself. It's meant as something far greater, which the website describes, which is essentially attack on our children through the generations to come. And unless we stop that, then this will be a fantastic tragedy which will destroy the culture of our nation permanently, as you'll see described on the website.
Don, I'm going to ask this question to you. Do you support and do you believe that Obamacare complies with the Constitution?
Absolutely not. That it applies in no way to the Constitution, has to be stopped and stopped permanently. This is just a classic example of what this boils down to, in my view, is essentially, if you boil it all away, it's Christianity attacked by its opponents. Its opponents have to destroy our culture and destroy our nation, this nation, but through many components they're attacking Christianity. And that ties in with the philosophical ideas which are behind Obamacare, where government will take care of you, and the church, which used to handle health care in the years prior to the arrival of insurance companies, we had a culture which encouraged the church and the functions which it performed to help the citizens. But now all that's been taken over, and unless that philosophy is stopped, which is essentially an anti-Christian philosophy, then you'll see the results of that as they unveil themselves throughout our culture.
Well, I agree with you that if Obamacare is in fact unconstitutional, and I just read something in the last couple of weeks that really frankly buoyed my spirits. It was actually cited in 1965. There was a very well-known case under the 9th Amendment of the Constitution, which is Griswold versus Connecticut. And Connecticut had on the books for many, many years that birth control was illegal. Anyway, it worked its way all the way up to the Supreme Court, And the Supreme Court in 1965, the first time in 170 years, utilized the Ninth Amendment as saying it's unconstitutional to get into the privacy of the people. And it was overturned, and of course, 6 years later, it led to Roe v. Wade.
Don, you mentioned before that we need to repeal Obamacare. And I have a question for you. I believe that the voters of this state voted for Proposition 187, which was to do not give citizenship to illegal aliens. It was overturned by the Ninth Superior Court, Circuit Court. Don't you think that the way things are in the country now, that this stands because of our liberal judges, that this has a problem as far as conservatives go? And what do you think that we should do about the, installing judges that will abide by the Constitution? What's your vision there?
Well, absolutely. I totally agree that the deck is stacked against us in judicial decisions which are decided as soon as we, the people, take a choice which the powers that be have decided is wrong for us to do. And that spans from illegal immigration to homosexual marriage to fill in the blank. And really the only thing that can be done is essentially what the Tea Party is doing, but you have to, this is just the beginning of the battle. It's a battle which goes down to the precincts and throughout the state, and this can be a multi-year battle which I have to question, can we do it in time to save the nation? But it has to be done irregardless of that we have to fight it out on the precinct level and all the lower level so-called races for judges and everything else. These are absolutely vital. They might not seem to be at the moment. You could elect Joe Smith for judge, but unless you vet Joe Smith and make sure that he's on your side, you'll get a surprise sooner or later, because our opponents have armies of people to plug into these slots.
So speaking of judges, we have a Supreme Court judge that while she was in South Africa, I believe she said that South Africans should not model their constitution after ours. I would consider that just about grounds for sedition. How would you suggest that we handle traitorous acts by judges and officials? And what would you say about somebody that would badmouth our Constitution?
Rabbi, you can't ask a question.
Oh.
He won't be able to respond.
Oh, okay.
You can ask it, but he can't respond.
Okay, so is this not sedition, where we have judges openly going against our way of life? Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, what I meant was you could ask him, but he can't respond.
I'm sorry.
Question number 3.
Yes, Rabbi, in regard to judges and what we need to do with them for those who oppose the basic foundational principles of our nation in so many ways, what would you present as your solution to that problem?
Mike.
Those of you that know me know that I started surfing in 1962, and I'm a surfer of note. So therefore, I like boards, and I also like the water, so I would suggest waterboarding. That's the short answer. The long answer, these people need to be tried. The first thing I will do as United States Senator is I will retroactively seek to try Dianne Feinstein for sedition and treachery with her sanctuary cities.
I can appreciate the rabbi's very creative use of water and boards. As an addition, though, which I would add to that would be that at the grassroots level, I would say that for judges, let's say there's a Joe Smith judge in this area who has a adverse ruling to X issue for the citizens here. My own opinion is that relative to what we've done down in the Bay Area, is that Judge Smith needs to have a picket in front of their home, and that they have to have pressure exerted on them because, in general, both judges and public officials feel that they can just do their whimsical ideas and slap the people in the face and get away with it without any consequences. They have to be shown that that's totally wrong and that we're going to bring them to task. Excuse me, as senator, it's my job to do on the federal level what the local citizens are doing on the local level. So I have to figuratively slap my opponents in the face in Washington. So I'm not going to go there to be anything. I'll be the total opposite of a wallflower. I'll be the most activist senator that you could ever imagine in your wildest dreams.
I'll ask Dan another question. What is your number one priority if you are elected as our senator in California? Your number one.
Well, number one, there are so many desperate issues facing our nation, and we're going down the tubes in so many different ways, but I would go for what I consider the core of the issue: attack the Federal Reserve System and attack the corruption of the income tax. As I have a sheet out there in the lobby, which I would hope you would take and prove me wrong. Actually, you can get $300,000 if you do prove me wrong. And I tell this to everyone that you've all been trained not to believe it, or perhaps you haven't. But there is no law which requires an American working in America to either file a tax return or pay income tax. I have not done so since '95. True, that's self-confession. And so this corruption of the income tax, which enslaves all of our citizens and sucks the lifeblood and prosperity out of our nation by a private banking cartel, which is, the Federal Reserve System is just like Don's bank or Joe's bank. It's no more federal, as has been said, than Federal Reserve. They have to be stopped. You stop that fantastic corruption and you get a fantastic change in the power of corrupt politicians like Senator Feinstein to slap us all in the face and get away with it.
My number one priority is also the oath in which all elected officials have in our nation. And that as I do solemnly swear that I, Oscar Alejandro Braun, will support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, and that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same. And I take this obligation freely, without mental reservation or purpose of invasion, and that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties of the office in which I am seeking. That is what our elected officials across the nation, local, state, federal, have forgotten, why we elected them. And it's all about the Constitution. We are a nation of law, not men.
Can I respond to what he just said?
No. This will be your
Question.
question number 3.
Okay, let me ask you, Oscar. I attended a conference where we had a quote-unquote Republican who advocated for pathway for citizenship for illegal aliens. Now, there's probably between 20 and 30 million illegal aliens. And by the way, I don't call them illegal aliens. They're called illegal Democrats. Now, do you suggest that we have a pathway to citizenship? And if not, what would you do?
I passionately support legal immigration, since both my parents are immigrants. But I support upholding the Constitution. I think you understand that. And I find it more than saddened that in this state, Senator Feinstein, before she was Senator Feinstein and the mayor of San Francisco, and in her entire political career, was one of the first to set up these sanctuary cities in which, whether they be citizens or non-citizens, but non-citizens could break federal laws, break the laws of our nation, and find sanctuary in various communities. In San Francisco, and of course in Los Angeles are the most well-known. But they're sprinkled throughout the state. And I can assure you that if I am fortunate enough to represent the people of California, there will be an end to sanctuary cities, and I will see that the Attorney General forcefully enforces all our constitutional laws.
Of course, the Attorney General could give a damn about the law, and he himself needs to be tried for sedition. That's another issue. The fact of the matter is that we as Americans have been sucker punched into ceding our sovereignty and our language. I'm a teacher, I'm a language teacher, I speak 5 languages. What my profession is as a teacher is I'm a Spanish teacher. Now I lived in Mexico for 5 years. I speak fluent Spanish and I get along great with everybody. Pedro Calderón, the president of Mexico declared that California is northern Mexico. As far as I'm concerned, that's a declaration of war. And as far as I'm concerned, we need to have English in our state and federal institutions only. Now, if you want to stop illegal immigration, stop it. No Section 8 housing, no food stamps, no Medicare, and English only. They'll run back to Guadalajara.
Rabbi, since you are a teacher at the moment, could you give your perspectives on the educational system in our state, and especially relative to perhaps the actions of Senator Feinstein and other government officials and what they've done to accomplish achieving that state?
I have to laugh, Don, because they haven't accomplished anything. They've destroyed our education. Everybody knows that's a teacher, that is to say those non-communist teachers. And by the way, the CTA is known as the Communist Teachers Association. Let it be known. I've never met a teacher in my lifetime that gave a hoot about America and our values and our flag. When I, as a teacher, when I have 45 students in my class and I have to beg them to stand up for the Pledge of Allegiance and then they tell me they're going to sue me, I know we're in deep trouble. So in answer to your question, get rid of everything. Start over. Just the Department of Education, get rid of it. There's $80 billion of pork. Get rid of that. Start all over again with the 3 R's. These kids don't know how to read and write. And that's why they're Obama's drones. That's why these young people are joining the occupiers, and that's why they're Obama's army, because they are being suckered and they are being influenced, and they have absolutely no mind of their own anymore. So there's a lot to do, but start off all over from the very beginning with patriotism and the flag, the Bill of Rights, and of course, God in the classroom.
I totally agree, Rabbi. My own elementary school, and relative to the problems of our education, I bring this up, and you can see this at candlecrusade.org also, that my own elementary school, alma mater, now has a lesbian, gay, transsexual, bisexual queer club in the elementary school. And the reason for that I would say is, rational people could say why, but there's a very rational answer. Hitler made a statement during his reign that I don't care about the parents, I get the kids, I teach them what I want, they follow me, and you can die and I win. And so that's the same idea for the opponents of everything that you do here. They see you as dying off, you'll be replaced by their drones, and they win the battle. So that's why I agree with Randy Thomason, who is a pro-family person from Sacramento, fighting it out in the legislative wars. He recommends that this time parents should abandon the public schools, especially since you see the passage of SB 48. They're essentially telling you that they don't care what you think, and they're going to slap you in the face and say that you should love it and agree with it. I would say forget it, you need to tell them where to go.
I'll ask Dan again.
It's Don. I didn't want
Don, I'm sorry. He's Dan. I'm getting my Dans and my Dons confused tonight. Dan, Don, week before last, the House of Representatives passed a very, very important bill here in the House, and it was H.R. 1837, and it's also known as the Sacramento-San Joaquin Valley Water Reliability Act, and it was a big movement forward. Do you know anything about this, or if you don't know anything about this, it's about water policies. What would be your policies in the Senate in where this bill is headed for if you are our new elected senator?
I don't know all the particulars of that general act, but just looking at the, I'll call it the culture wars, which they've passed through the water, affecting our water usage, I see it that there's environmentalism, proper environmentalism, where we can go out and make sure there's no trash in the streets and such, and there's radical environmentalism, which intends to, as your northern brothers in the northern counties at the Defend Rural America group have discovered, it intends to steal water rights and crush our agriculture for other purposes, which we can discuss here in other ideas, relative to other ideas. But my perspective is, first, we protect our citizens, our food supply, and our farmers. And it's entirely possible to also protect the environment. It's just that, in my view, the environmentalists will say that that is not possible, that you can't protect the environment and have agricultural. They'll shove agriculture under the bus, to use that phrase. So I totally disagree with that. But so I say first farmers and people, and then we go fish after that.
Well, Senator Feinstein, along with Senator Boxer, has announced that the bill is dead on arrival. The bill would move to the Senate, and the Senate, of course, would have to pass it in order for it to become law. The bill is a big breakthrough. It is based on what is known as the Bay Delta Accord that was signed in 1994, and it'll restore the water rights, the senior water rights to the San Joaquin and Sacramento valleys, which means that they will no longer get 30%. They'll get 100% of what they've been paying for some years. It puts people before the smelt, and it allows our economy to get back on its feet. And I will be a very aggressive advocate in the Senate and see that these bills that are coming out of the House, we have a lot of wonderful Californian representatives in the House. Devin Nunes and McClintock are on the point, and I plan to carry that water all the way through into law.
Oscar, what do you know about Agenda 21, and what do you think is the root of it? What is the ultimate purpose of it? What would you do to stop its being adopted either locally or statewide?
I actually know a lot about Agenda 21. As I said earlier, the California Watershed Posse is a resource management and planning council. Agenda 21 flows from the UN. It's all about global governance. And the itinerary is to, the agenda is just that, have UN laws, international laws govern our nation, our state. And it's all based around controlling the populace, and they do that by controlling our property rights, our water rights, our air rights, our CO2 rights, virtually every one of our natural resources. That's why we don't have a timber industry today, or a mining industry, and farming, and et cetera, et cetera. The Agenda 21, which is known as AB 32 and SB 375 in this state, is what is literally destroying our nation, destroying our state, and I will see that that comes to an end if I go to the Senate. Well, that would take more than 60 seconds.
So partially the answer would be, we need leadership that is not afraid to be an American. We need leadership that's going to stand in the face of the UN and the Hillary Clintons and those people, seditious individuals that want to reduce us to a third world status. This is what Obama is all about, This has nothing to do with climate change or anything else. These people, by the way, I think I may be older than anybody here, could be. I remember in the 60s, our dear Governor Moonbeam, with that infamous quote, "Small is better." That's straight out of Communism 101. Reduce us to a third world nation, cut us off at the knees to prevent us from prospering, from using our resources. So this goes all the way back to that, and I'm very glad to hear a definitive knowledge on your part about that issue. You're one of the few that I've heard. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to pause for just a second and give you your float time.
Don, you currently have 3 minutes and 30 seconds float time beyond the time given for answers, questions, and rebuttals. Oscar, you have 4 minutes, and Rabbi Shifren, you have 3 minutes and 15 seconds.
Now, just kind of a reminder, when you're making a rebuttal or answering a question, with that extra float time, you can either use it at the end, or you can go on, even though the red comes up, you can go beyond that, and she'll keep track if you need to make another point. Okay, so we have 3 questions left, and number 5.
Oscar, in regard to the energy situation in our state and its ramifications both to other states and from their processing energy to our state, what would you do for aiding our situation?
Kill CARB is a starting point. Literally repeal the EPA and the California Air Resource Board's existence. They are destroying our economy. In 2010, Assemblyman Dan Logue asked the Legislative Analyst Office to do an analysis on the AB 32. They wanted to suspend it. It was Prop 23, I believe. And the analyst released a report. Never saw the light of day, I don't think, in 2010. But what the analyst said in 8 pages, which you'll find on my website, by the way, is that what this Global Warming Solution Act does is it makes California uncompetitive. We can't compete with, in a world economy, we can't even compete with our neighbors. So if somebody, for instance, has a business in Los Angeles County, an average small businessman, and they move out of the county, just not out of the state, just out of the county, they would save 20% on their overhead. If they left the state, they would save 40%. Okay? We can't compete. We are losing 3,000 jobs a week. Employers, excuse me, not jobs, employers a week. And we have been doing this for going on 4 years now. And it keeps on accelerating. The California Watershed Posse joined an organization 4 years ago that was called the AB 32 Implementation Group. And the coalition was huge. It included the State Chamber of Commerce and farm industry, virtually every sector. And what our studies found, remember we were trying to find out a way to implement this thing without destroying our economy, was that there are tens of billions of dollars that we Californians pay because of AB 32. It's raised the rate of all your energy. It's raised the rate of your water, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It is destroying our economy, and if we don't stop both the federal and state government from going down this ridiculous path, we, in fact, as a state, will collapse financially. And it is my purpose, not only with the initiative that's being circulated, but if I get to Washington, that'll be my #1 thing, to see that we come into full constitutional compliance. There is nowhere in the Constitution that they have the legal authority to govern our natural resources and our property and our water, etc. And it'll go away.
I totally agree with everything that Oscar said. I would add that we now currently have an energy secretary who's would be completely happy to have gasoline, as in his own words, hit $7 and keep on going north. And so when you look at that and you have the state implementation of AB 32, this will strangle and crush progressively our citizens. And just as I was sitting here, I thought, well, One thing we should do is have the equivalent of an Occupy movement to head to Stephen Chu's office in Washington and occupy it until he gets out of that office. And so we have to be very active in attacking these people, because they are relentless, and they will, until they get a good slap upside the head, which says no, then that means no, they'll keep on attacking us. And the result is a crushing of our middle class, a crushing of our economies, and it will lead to this being the good old days. If we don't stop these people, their intentions for how to control and crush the lifestyles of every one of you and everyone else, they go far beyond what they've already just attempted and reached at this point. This is just the beginning, so these people have to be stopped, and stopped now.
Rabbi, you're on. Would you name the bureaucracies actually part of the president's cabinet that you would repeal, dissolve? You can start with the Department of Education if you like.
There we go. That's really easy. I would repeal the Oval Office. Secretary of State. She is she's an idiot, but that's not the biggest of our problems. She is part of the global world order. I would say repeal the Office of Justice. Who does not become outraged when we think about those new Black Panthers punching and hitting white people? No charges filed. If those were Republicans or white Christians hitting blacks, they'd have been in jail. This is the problem in America today, outrageous double standards. I know I didn't answer your question, but you didn't answer one of mine either.
Fair enough. I would start with the Department of Energy, the Department of Education, the Commerce Department, EPA. I would streamline the Department of Interior and get rid of the U.S. Fish and Wildlife. I would get rid of NOAA, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, or turn them into what they do very, very well back in the day, and that was report on the weather. And let's see. I'm sure I could think of more, but I just can't think of them right now. But it's time truly to have a limited government that starts with eliminating the unnecessary bureaucracies, also known as the administrative state.
Rebut on what he said?
No.
Okay.
But you can ask a question.
Oh, my question.
Right.
Yeah. Oscar, things are going to be hopping in Iran very soon. What would you do if you were the President of the United States? Forget about Senate. I'm asking you, as President, what would you do? I want to see where you're coming from, okay? Because you have the power as President. Take it away.
Well, as Commander-in-Chief, I would notify Israel that they're good to go. We got their back. And we'll provide the fueling planes to carry out the attack, and we'll join in if necessary and as agreed upon and planned. There's absolutely no reason why we shouldn't protect not only our best ally in the Middle East, but in my opinion, Iran is every bit as much a threat to our nation and to everything that we stand for. And I do believe in preemptive strikes. And I think Iran has made it quite clear that they want to wipe out the evil empire, which is known as the United States, of course.
As President of the United States, I would not be bowing down to Saudi tyrants. As President of the United States, I would not be asking for our drone that was knocked down. I know for a fact from military people have told me that drone contained sensitive material, sensitive information that will harm our interests. As far as I'm concerned, I would employ the old statement, to the shores of Tripoli with our Marines, block off anything entering or leaving their country, no food, no water, till we get the drone back. We have been sent back to the dark ages from Obama. He has destroyed our will to be, no, it was not unintended. He has destroyed our will, he's destroyed our military, our will to fight. This is the problem that we face. We're looked upon as suckers, as a paper tiger, which is far more dangerous than any threat that we face.
Rabbi, relative to your comments, could you give a perhaps top 3 or at least your top foreign policy perspectives that you believe that we need to implement from your position here as a senator in California?
They say that they judge you by the friends that you keep. My best friend in America today is Sheriff Joe Arpaio. This lawlessness at the border will transform our nation. If anybody thinks that we can continue to fiddle while Rome burns on this issue, we are going to watch as our nation's going to be taken away from. They're already doing it by birth. Article 14 has nothing to do with anchor babies or non-anchor babies or daisy chains, whatever. That was for slaves. Slaves in this country were given Article 14 to show that they are citizens. Illegal aliens are not under the jurisdiction of the United States of America. So that's one thing. Tent City, for anybody that comes in here illegally, if they don't like it, they can post a bail or a bond, and then they can take the bus down to Tijuana on their own dime. That's number 2. And number 3, what we need to do is any illegal alien felons or rapists or people that have harmed either our people, injured people, or their property need to be rounded up now instead of given driver's licenses like our numbskull LAPD chief. We are not being taken seriously. We're being stepped on, and that's dangerous for America.
I would totally agree with everything that the rabbi says. I believe that Sheriff Arpaio, you can see his recent press conference regarding our president's disqualification or possible disqualification for office. And we can see, I believe, that we not only have an enemy in the White House, in my opinion, and an enemy in Senator Feinstein, but we have also an enemy, unfortunately, in our media, which has totally dismissed Sheriff Arpaio. What should normally be front page news is relegated to derision and just disrespect and not even mentioning it in order to let it blow over. So that's just part of the massive problems that we have in this nation, and we have to approach this by having a very activist group such as yourself. You're the local arm of what myself as your senator will be, and I'll be attacking Washington just as you'll be attacking the local area. And to take our solutions, and we can't afford to sit back any longer. We have to take the battle to the enemy. We have to strike them when they expect us to roll over and play dead or just, oh, they won't do anything. We have to do the total reverse and put it to them.
Don, I think one of the most important things that a senator must do is to vet and approve selections for the Supreme Court. And I think it's a reasonable thing that in the next 4 years that there's going to be at least 1, possibly 2 new Supreme Court justices. What would be guiding you in your selection?
Well, the very first thing that would guide me is that in sitting before whatever committee and questioning this judge, I have a limited time to achieve what needs to be achieved. And from my perspective, all the past Supreme Court justices that have been nominated, especially Kagan and Sotomayor, they get softball questions, and if there's anything which approaches anything hard, which might actually expose their political beliefs and what they intend to do when they get into that office, their senators who question them are attacked, and those senators back off. That would, in fear of keeping respect, whatever respect is left for the Republican Party, as compared to being called divisive or all the name calling that they can get for that. My approach would be to just totally drop that and totally attack these people. That I would go after them for their backgrounds, like Elena Kagan for her help on Obamacare and passing it. I've forgotten all the details. All the worms and the rock has to be lifted up, and all the rat things that they do have to be exposed, instead of giving them softball opportunities to skate through, and then we get the shaft when they start to put their opinions and hammer us on the head with them.
I think I'd have a similar approach, but I would focus in on what their belief in the Constitution was. I stated in my introduction that I'm a constitutional originalist, which is my way of saying is that our founding fathers said what they meant, and they meant what they said. It was Supreme Court Judge, I've forgotten it, anyway. The Supreme Court judge made her comments in Egypt. It was not actually South Africa. And she was asked, what a good model that the Egyptians might use for their new country, or the country, the constitutional, that they were about to, it was, thank you very much, it was Judge Ginsburg. And she said, I think South Africa would be an excellent model. I wouldn't use the United States. I think that tells us all a great deal about the leftist-leaning justices on the Supreme Court, of course, of which we have 4. And we must not allow, to the best of our ability, to have nominees that don't believe that we have the best Constitution that ever was written.
Don, the Chancellor of Germany and the recently, amazingly enough, Sarkozy, I think I'm pronouncing it right, from France, the Premier of France, Prime Minister, as well as the Prime Minister of Denmark, all have recently claimed that multiculturalism is a failure. I'm assuming that you have not been to Europe in a while. I have. I was invited by the English Defence League to speak in London, where I needed to wear a bulletproof vest to prevent from, you know what? Let me ask you a question. What's your view on multiculturalism in view of especially what's been going on in Europe, and how would you stem that here in the United States?
Well, Rabbi, that's an excellent question. And I would say multiculturalism, of course, say the Christian church in our nation was founded, our nation is a Christian nation. It was founded that way, and that's why all the other churches and religions can have the freedom to worship as they do. And so we're not an exclusive nation at all, but to bring in multiculturalism, there's a gentleman named Gramsci, G-R-A-M-S-C-I. If you look at it, he was a communist theoretician in the early 20s, and he dreamed up all this philosophy, which is coming into action, to use multiculturalism to split our nation. So absolutely that has to be stopped. And I would say that starts in education. Because our education is totally reversed now, where the educational establishment, the powers that be, they've seized control of this. And if you get a book by John Taylor Gatto of The Underground History of American Education, you'll see what they've done. And so it's meant to subvert our children by teaching them, instead of American values and ideals, to drown them in this multiculturalism bunk. And so that has to be stopped. And until you stop that, you're going to have continuous students who are taught this pablum, and they'll come out and inflict it through being as Democrats, raised to elective office, and then to force it down our throats.
It's interesting that you mentioned that. Recently, I had an opportunity in my school to introduce a new club on campus. It was called La Raza Blanca. Now, needless to say, I got a little bit of static from our stellar principal. But I put it to you, why not have the white race? We have La Raza, we have Mecha, Aztlán, Reconquista, we have gay this, gay that, transgender, transdressing. Nothing at all about American patriotism, though. How about the American Patriots Club? You'll never see that on a college campus or a high school campus. So the answer is just what you said. I've taken steps in my own school to make sure that kids in my class, whether they like it or not, they salute the United States flag. And if they have a problem with it, they can sue me, and I'll see them in court.
Okay, final pause. I'll let Elizabeth give you your float time. We have one more question, one round of questions.
Don, you have 3 minutes and 15 seconds to use as you please. Oscar, you have 2 minutes and 30 seconds, and you also have 2 minutes and 30 seconds, Rabbi Shifren. So enjoy.
Okay, question number 7, final question.
Oscar, how would you aid our California economy from the office of senator to recover jobs and prosperity for our citizens?
Well, I'd use the power of the budget. And that's one of the things the Senate does. They can sponsor bills and trim budgets. And I would defund virtually every non-governmental organization in the nation. ABAG, that's the Association of Bay Area Governments, but you're familiar with what I'm talking about. And I would trim the funds, in some cases defund a great portion of the administrative state, starting with the EPA and some of the other agencies that I mentioned earlier. But the power of the budget, and then in streamlining, it takes a long time for legislation to get through. It takes years. But I would try to set it on a path in which we do limit our government. We downsize it, starting with the bureaucracies.
I totally agree with everything you said, Oscar. I would add to that this is such a desperate time for our nation. I believe that we need to be even more attacking. As a senator in Washington, I would go in and I would attack the IRS, the fraudulency of the income tax, and especially how that trickles down, not only the fraudulency of the federal tax, but of our state tax. That citizens, I've experienced this myself. I get a bill from our franchise tax board of you owe X amount. I can't present any evidence to them. I can't question their witnesses. I can't question their figures. I can't present witnesses in my favor or figures in my favor. They say you owe it, that's it, pay it. And so then after I have to pay it in order to possibly get a hearing later, that they'll think about it if they want to give me a hearing where I can present all of my information. That's total tyranny. And we've been suffering through this crushing tyranny for endless years, and endless people in our state have been annihilated, financially annihilated by both the IRS and the FTB, a state tax tag team, and that has to stop. They have to be put under control of the people instead of being a runaway tyranny which crushes our citizens.
Rabbi, I've done a great deal of research and studies over the last 5 years, and my focus has been on the 9th Amendment of the Constitution. And I'd like to hear your thoughts, share your thoughts with us this evening as to what the 9th Amendment means and what it means to you in our current environment.
There's a ghost out there. There's a hovering demon called states' rights. It goes back to the 60s, where unfortunately there were abuses to our African American brothers and sisters in some states in America. But that doesn't mean we throw the baby out with the bathwater. What isn't specifically set aside to the federal government is reserved to the states, period. What part of that is not clear? Now, if you say that in the way that I just said it to you just now, you're like, you're a homophobe, you're a radical, you're a right-wing bigot. Well, bring it on. I want to go back to let the states decide what they want to do in their own state without the commies at the federal level sticking their nose into our business.
Well, I think you actually talked more about the 10th Amendment than you did the 9th Amendment. The 10th Amendment is the limited powers to the federal government, which are contained in Article 1, Section 8. All those powers that are not designated or enumerated, I should say, for the federal government are in fact left to the state or the people. The 9th Amendment is the amendment that says that all the rights in which our Creator has given us, all our unalienable rights, even though they're not listed in the Constitution, they have the same weight of authority and power as those that are listed from the 1st through the 8th. And I said earlier this evening that it was in 1965, just in the area of great turmoil here in our country, that was the first time the 9th Amendment had been used, had been cited by the Supreme Court. Just think about it, 170 years before it was cited by the Supreme Court, and that was the case regarding Griswold versus the state of Connecticut. And where the government, the state government, many state governments actually, had forbidden the use of birth control. And what the Supreme Court said, that the 9th Amendment, people had the right to privacy. They had the right to make those type of decisions on their own. There was a sanctity, there was a sanctuary, if you'd like, in their bedrooms, in their homes. And that is important because the president, of course, has just raised that again with regarding to Obamacare, but it hasn't changed the ruling of the court. We do have the right to govern our bodies. We are sovereigns. So they can't prohibit from us from taking care of ourselves, and they also can't mandate how we are to take care of ourselves with regards to health. The 9th Amendment is the absolute spirit of 1776. It's all about our personal liberties, and we must not lose this struggle that we're going with this administration. Once we give up this, we've lost it all, in my opinion.
Apology, I've had that long drive from LA. Kind of, I don't know which country I'm even in right now, to tell you the truth. A lot of Americans could probably say the same thing. Let me ask you, Oscar, two things. I don't know if you're a vet or not, but very, very briefly, yes or no, would you reintroduce a draft, military service required of every boy that reaches the age of 18? And how do you feel about having ROTC in our school?
I've never served our nation as in the armed forces, but my wife has. She's a lieutenant commander, retired in the Navy, and my niece, which is like a daughter to us, is a Marine and just a recent graduate from the Citadel. So military has been a big part of my extended family. I would not institute, I don't see the necessity at this time, the draft. I very much support ROTC. I'd like to see it virtually in every university and even a program that would start in high school. If for only the reason to have our youth realize that we do have obligations as being citizens. And it goes further than just giving lip service and, saying the pledge.
As a military As a vet, I was a physical fitness instructor to elite paratroopers and rangers. After 25 years of teaching your children, I can tell you that there's nothing I would love to see to increase morale and patriotism in America. First, get the ROTC at the high school level. Let those kids see what a real man looks like. Is a man wear a dress? Does he wear a skirt? What does a man look like? We don't know. Secondly, yes, I want a draft. I want everybody, every man that's the age of 18 to go through some form of basic training, and don't tell me you can't do push-ups. I'll take care of you on that. And if it's really bad, let them do some community service. These kids are graduating, 50% graduating rate, dropouts, drugs, prison, gangs, graffiti. That's all because we have lost control of our youth. The parents don't control the youth. Let the military take care of them.
Okay, we'll start with Dawn and we'll go through our float time that's left.
Okay, Don, you were saving the best for the last, I guess. You have 3 minutes and 15 seconds, so if you would like to go ahead and have your final say, you've got 3 minutes and 15 seconds to do that.
I want to say that I'm here to represent the Constitution Party, and I mention that first because in the last year or two, I believe you've all heard that there were your enemies who openly boasted in the media that they would infiltrate your group and make you look bad through their actions, and so they were boasting about their possibilities of doing that. I'm in the Constitution Party because we are what I consider the conservative party of our state, because the American Independent Party, which I was also in before, the current state-recognized chairman of that is an agent of the Southern Poverty Law Center, for those of you who know that group. They've taken over that party, and it is a shadow, it is a fake shadow of what it really was. I just mention that because you can be attacked that way too and destroyed from within. So vigilance is extremely important for things to stop things which you would never dream would happen, but they can attack you too, and you can be quite aware of that. I wanted to say, as your senator, it's my job to do so many things. There's so many things harming our state, but I bring out the first issue of primary importance, which I believe would be a keystone in solving our economic difficulties of our citizens. Excuse me, and that's to return honest money to our nation. And that is to destroy the private banking cartel of the Federal Reserve, which I refer to as the American Mafia. And your government officials all know the fraud of that. They've been briefed on this many times. They've been given the information on the fraud and the income tax. And they choose not to do anything because they know they might have either a primary challenger or an unfortunate accident, I'll put it that way, if they get too out of line. So it's my job, if I'm blessed by your support and blessed by our Creator, to be able to reach Washington to do the first second that I would achieve victory, and there would be a massive heart attack throughout the entire political establishment. You'd have to have defibrillators by the thousands to bring them off the floor. And so after they recovered, 2 seconds after that, they'd be dreaming of how to get me out of office, even months before I'd even taken the oath of office. So it's my job to hit the ground and start attacking them the instant after I'm elected, even before I take that office, that oath of office. And I can just tell you that I'll be the greatest fighter that you'll ever have. It might be a one-term fighter, but I'll be the greatest fighter that you'll ever have and you could ever dream of having, because the Federal Reserve, if I don't knock it out, then nobody can knock it out. Because I'll do things which our senators would never dream of doing. They wouldn't be caught dead doing, because their job is to stay in their cushy office and please the powers that be. That's not my job. My job is to go there and get my job done, which is to defend the people of America and our Constitution from destruction. And that's exactly what I'm going to do. So I ask for your support and in this task. It's a very difficult task. I have excellent people here who would also make excellent senators. And so it's somewhat presumptuous of me to say that I can achieve these wonderful men in all that they were doing, because we're all fighting for the defense of our nation in the generations to come. But we have to win this now. We're coming down to a battle where it's do or die, and if we don't stop these people, these evil people who are working to destroy us, the generations ahead will be slaves, and they'll look to us for our failure. So I ask for your support in stopping that. Thank you.
Okay, Oscar, you have 1 minute to have your final words. Yeah, it is.
First of all, I want to thank for the invitation. Doesn't count. I want to thank the Reading Tea Party for inviting us up and giving us this opportunity to tell you a little bit about ourselves and seek your support. I think I'd be a very good senator, and possibly as tough as Don over here. I come from good, solid, peasant, Basque, and Spanish stock. We just don't know how to quit or retreat. But even if one of us gets there, we really can't do it without you folks. Our nation is in great trouble, and the enemy is from within. And a big part of that enemy is ourselves when we look in the mirrors, for being lax, for not being engaged, for not really understanding what the local issues are. You have to get out there and you have to vet your local officials, city council and the dog catcher, what have you. And make sure you vote and you choose correctly. Get people that are going to first and foremost protect your Constitution and look out for you, not for their political careers. Thank you.
Rabbi Shifren, you also have 1 minute.
There's only one candidate that has traveled the world. I speak 5 languages fluently. I lived in the Middle East. I am a veteran. There's only one candidate that has publicly gone out there to oppose Sharia law and radical Islam in our country. There's only one candidate that is going to fight the radical, illegal alien agenda. I understand what they want to do. I will prevent them from doing it. It takes courage, it takes discipline, and more than anything, it takes patriotism to confront the evil that's facing us. As a veteran, as a school teacher, as someone that has been supported by Congressman Dana Rohrabacher, Congressman Tom McClintock in my state Senate race, they did not support me because I was a wimp, but because they knew I would carry the banner of America. My candidacy will send the biggest shock to Obama that you could ever imagine. He won't know which window to jump out of. God bless you all, and God bless America.
Thank you very much. Let's give him a round of applause. And thank him for making the long trip up here.